Hey, what's going on, Archons? Welcome to another edition of KeyThoughts, my weekly vlog on my musings on this great game of KeyForge. This week, I'm going to be talking about the idea of getting to know your deck, or thinking you know your deck, but really you don't, and the discovery that ensues. This is a topic that I have talked about in the past, but I had kind of a new insight into it, a new discovery, as you will. So we're going to get into that, but first I am going to do, of course, the card of the week. So this week, my card of the week is none other than Hobnobber. For those of you who are not familiar with this card, it is a Shadows creature that has 3 powers with the action ability. If your opponent has 6 or more Ember, steal 2. The reason I'm choosing this card is because when I played Sealed this week, I cracked a deck that happened to have 3 Hobnobbers in it. And I have to say, the reason why I actually kind of like this card is because of the threat that it puts on the board. 3 power is nothing huge, but you essentially are saying to your opponent, if you get 6 or more Ember, I got you. You are not only going to be off check, but I am also going to be getting Ember myself. So when you have 3 of them, it's obviously not as potent because they have to go way up for it to work, but it just makes it so that they have to deal with 3 in order to be in check. And if they don't deal with all 3 and you go even above to counter it, then that amount of Ember is a key's worth of Ember being stolen. So it just makes it so they can't go and check without dealing it. So I really like Hobnobber for the disruption that it also provides, because your opponent has to prioritize removing that maybe over another creature, or else them going into check is going to be less fruitful, or not even happen because you'll just take it. So that is why I am a fan of Hobnobber. I think it's a really cool card just with the threat factor that it brings to the table. Now, on to this week's topic. So I had a deck that I purchased on the secondary market, and this deck had, for me, I'm not going to speak in specifics, I'm going to talk about general so that you can maybe relate to your own decks. Basically, it had this, the reason why I bought it, because I thought it did this one thing. I was like, oh, it'd be really cool to take advantage of this mechanic and then having these artifacts to actually utilize that instead of working against me to work for me. I might as well tell you kind of what it is. So it was a triple Alstrom Rostrum's deck, which is the artifact that lets you move Ember from one creature to another. And then it had a Quintana in it as well and some other exalts. So the idea was basically that I'm going to get Ember on my creatures through various dino activities, exalting, etc., capture, and then throw those over maybe 3 at a time onto opponent's creature, create a pinata, pop my opponent's pinata. That was kind of the idea. The deck didn't function exactly that way. But what I didn't realize is another house, Sanctum, had a lot of really awesome things in it. And I started to realize that when I don't try and push the Alstrom's Rostrum's play and just start actually focusing on the Sanctum house and what it offers, it actually was a stronger deck. And I think that sometimes exists within KeyForge in a really unique ways. You look at a deck, you see an aspect of it, and you go, oh, this is so cool. I like that this deck has this. I'm going to get this deck. Or you open it, same sort of scenario. And then you start playing it and you're like, huh, why isn't this working? Like, I feel like this should be a thing. And then you keep going, and then as you're just playing in the natural way the cards come, you start having this realization that this other aspect of the deck is so strong. You start realizing the other things, and maybe actually what you originally were drawn to in the deck is not the primary way the deck is going to rock. That's actually maybe a secondary or tertiary way that the deck will roll on. And I just love that KeyForge has that discovery, the puzzle aspect of KeyForge. Just thinking about that aspect, well, part of it is also, there's a new game coming out that I don't know if people have heard or not heard about, that Dr. Garfield is a part of, called SoulForge, which is also kind of it's not a deck building game, but it's like, imagine if the houses, for those of you who don't know, of KeyForge were all separate and you could just combine 2 and you kind of have like a hero card. So it is an algorithmically generated sort of idea, and I'm looking forward to taking on that game because I do like the puzzle aspect, but this gives like somewhat more of a deck building aspect, since you can basically combine 2 things. So if it's like KeyForge, if you had a trash house and you're like, oh, let's swap this one in instead, which is kind of a cool concept. And I like it in something that's not KeyForge, and it's a life-based driven rather than resource-based driven game. So it looks really cool. Enough about that, though. You'll hear more about that if you go on to listen to Quit Playing Games with Our Hearts, the podcast that me and Dan is someone, aka Dan from Sanctimonious, have started together. It's a monthly one. We drop at the first of every month. So that being said, though, I just love the discovery and the puzzle. It's like KeyForge to me has become more of like, it's a strategy puzzle. You got to figure out how your puzzle works, then you just rock with your puzzle because you know the way the pieces come together and you get the picture at the end that helps you win the game. And if you're missing that one piece, you just can't find where it fits, then it won't be as great for you. And that's what I love about KeyForge. It's the puzzle aspect of the game. I've been playing more decks that are not top tier as of late, just because I'm trying to figure them out and I see something cool and I'm like trying to really unlock it and see if it can work. And if we go by SAS ratings, they're definitely in the mid-level of SAS, so in the 60s, mid-60s, which is where I feel a lot of Dark Tidings decks reside. And I don't think it means they're bad decks, but I think it means they're very interesting decks that require a little bit more time and patience. And yes, they may fall short against some of the top tier, but I think the enjoyment and fun that they provide within themselves is very instrumental to an enjoyable experience with KeyForge. I kind of like, in a way, playing these decks that are not always going to win and putting my back up against the wall. I find it's a really good sort of exercise, we'll call it, into becoming more proficient at KeyForge, because as I do that, when I go back to my top tier decks, I find I pilot those decks like so much stronger at a higher level, more efficient, because I'm trying to always, work against something that is not the best. It's kind of like, what's a good analogy here? So, like you sometimes are given balls in different sports that have a higher weight to them than the natural ball. And the idea is, as you're using those balls that have more resistance, you're actually building up the muscle so that when you use the natural, like regular ones, they just feel so much easier to do movement with, that you're stronger with them. And I kind of feel it's that sort of idea, although that felt like a very labored analogy, but that's kind of how I'm coming across it. So that's going to do it all for this week. I just want to give a shout out to Jan Englund, who is my newest Patreon supporter, coming in with a deck analysis pledge. So we only got a couple left. He wants me to take a look at some of his decks and give a full rundown, as I've been doing for Vault Boy. So those will be in the mix this month as well. And yeah, thank you, Jan, for becoming a part of it. Much appreciated. And what's going on in the other worlds of KeyForge in my life? So I've been taking a break pushing KeyForge product. I do have news that some AOA will be coming into the mix. It will be in English, I'm understood. So in the next couple weeks, you can stay tuned for some hot AOA deals and maybe some other ones as well. So yeah, please stay tuned for that. You find it here on my YouTube when the announcement of when that drops, and also on the Help from Future Self podcast. You can catch that as well. Tomorrow, my Worlds Collide French Adaptive Tournament match with Scrouner will be going up and live, so be sure to check that out. I can guarantee it will be an exciting game. Always good times with Scrouner. And folks, thank you so much for all your support. Please share this channel with other people if you think they enjoy KeyForge and would enjoy my perspective on the game. It is always appreciated. And as always, may your ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.